I look at how the gynocracy unironically seeks white approval, but those men that are caught in the gynocracy seek gynocratic approval.
Sisterhood first.
Wow.
And it's just this cycle
That's deep.
of constant feedback that, it's multiplying by zero.
The clip from the beginning of this video comes from BJS Ibmore's morning stream, and although it starts out as a conversation about affirmative action and the fallout from the repeal of it, it actually evolved into a conversation about just the ills of the Black community. And of course, this is not placing blame, because on the male side or the female side, we just come from a very unhealthy past. And because of this, we have developed some behaviors and some ways of looking at things that simply aren't healthy.
And our manosphere, the gynocracy works on the same principle. Okay. Double consciousness. Our women are really bad at it, because they'll say they want to end white supremacy and side with Becky in a heartbeat.
I describe it as the great Ouroboros of the Edo social complex, where I look at how the gynocracy unironically seeks white approval, but those men that are caught in the gynocracy seek gynocratic approval.
Sisterhood first.
Wow.
This particular point, I think, is really important, because especially for guys that are looking to go overseas, is that we are accustomed to trying to make people like us, and specifically women. And in our culture, we judge manhood, maleness, by basically how many people, in this case, how many women like you and your success in procreating or mating with a large number of women. And if you're not doing that, then that means that there's something intrinsically wrong with you, which of course recycles on itself as he's going to continue here in Nameless Protagonist as the one talking.
And it's just this cycle of constant feedback that, it's multiplying by zero, going back to the gynometry I described back.
I was valedictorian of my high school. I was on the basketball team, in AP classes, won the Florida State Forensics Championship, was Male Student of the Year, and did acting. My high school sweetheart, who I knew I could be with for a lifetime, broke up with me for a drug dealer who dropped out. This literally happened.
The comment that you heard was a response to this video from Inika Maliofor, the reasons why so many Black women are single. And she herself is a very accomplished, very educated woman. Her bio says she's an instructor at a college for, I believe, is African American studies. So she's not a stranger to academia. And yet we have yet another woman who's coming out in the vein of Danica Marie or Crimson Cure, saying that something is not right. We have to adjust and we have to fix these ills in the dating market, because something is very, very wrong when we look at our culture compared to other cultures. And it just speaks to the fact that our experience, the way that we have been acculturated, is toxic.
I am a BM and grew up in the inner city in the Midwest. I was never the coolest guy. Was very poor and didn't have name brand clothing. I was always respectful and kept to myself. Had me sights on many pretty Black women from grade school to high school, and was rejected by most of them all because I was not a popular guy or dope boy. I ended up marrying a PR woman who realized my worth and potential. Now when I go back to the high school reunions, I see all the used to be popular women big as hell and unmarried and divorced, trying to hold on to the memories of when they used to be the girl.
Here, Rogus is going to ask a question, and I would like for you to just listen to it in its entirety.
At what point does that fall out of mere programming? You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, that's literally why I use that term, cultural inertia. Again, an object in motion stays in motion until the greater force acts on it. So unless and until the environment changes, number one, or until a greater force acts on it, it stays the same. And I'll give you a quick parallel, and then we can move on to the next person to try to understand it. What we're experiencing are the effects of radiation poisoning. What slavery was essentially was a nuclear weapon that exploded, and people adjacent to that era can describe the thermal damage and the auditory fear that causes when you observe that mushroom cloud and you see the immediate fallout, which was Reconstruction that was mentioned earlier.
Right.
Now that's the analogy that is being used, and it's a very good analogy because we never really fixed what happened to Black people. We just let time pass. And as time has passed, we've just learned some things that just aren't the case in most cultures around the world. And so we have some parts of our culture that just are not healthy. They're fundamentally corrupted. And as people who grew up in that culture, we have to answer for these things. We have to find a way to address these ills that we have gotten used to.
What people fail to understand is, irrespective of those who died and suffered from the ground zero of slavery, the real damage that's caused is that radiated area that can last for centuries. And there's only two ways to address dealing with radiation, and that's distance and time.
Right.
Yeah. And the genetic damage that it does to your descendants. This passed.
Good genetic memory. Yep.
Yeah.
It passes on.
This explanation is what causes stories like this one.
This video is spot on. Back in high school, as an academically inclined, nice guy, I couldn't get any play with the sisters. Once I got to college, I became more of a nasty bachelor, recognizing that many sisters were more into style and swag than character and substance. So, guess what? I couldn't keep the ladies off me during that time, while openly stating I wanted no commitments and dated other women. It's insane. Eventually, I met a lovely, quality sister during my doctoral program, and we have been married for 24 years. Before meeting her, I strongly considered broadening my options to other races of women. When I arrived at graduate school, I would go out to the clubs occasionally. While there, I saw the sisters from graduate school, presumably among the best and brightest of our women, chasing dope boys. So, even some of our highest caliber women also prefer cads and criminals over quality men of character. It's sad.
Some people may wonder why me as a 20-year expat would spend so much time in this particular sector of YouTube, and I would dare say that there are two reasons. One is we as Black people have to understand what we come from. Not necessarily where, but what. The culture that we're used to. We come from a culture where manhood is defined by women, to be honest with you. If you're not getting women, if you don't have swag, if you don't have riz, if you don't look a certain way, if you're not a certain height, you're not an attractive man. And that leads the other men, as you've heard in the multiple stories, thinking I'm studied, I'm learned, I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do to be upwardly mobile, and it's not attracting anyone. And the thing that we have to understand is that is an anomaly. In healthy functioning cultures, if you are a bookworm and you have a little bit of riz, a little bit of charisma, you will be able to find not just a partner, but a partner to your liking, because someone's going to be searching you out as a viable partner. And so if you come from a culture where we think we have to do more than just be successful and we have to be in incredible shape and all these other things, there's a part of us that needs to decontaminate from that kind of culture and kind of re-normalize ourselves. And the second thing I would say is, if you come from that culture, you have to also understand when you go to other cultures and your actions are of ones that mimic that same male bravado of I got to get girls, and the more girls I get, the more of a man I am. That's going to be seen a certain way in cultures overseas. Even Theo speaks of to his students that if you go overseas, the best thing you could do is find a nice young lady and date her. Don't serial date. Don't go around chasing skirts, because I've had people come up to me on multiple occasions and look me in the face and say, "You're here for the girls, aren't you?" If you are serious for why you're in that particular country, it would be in your best interest and the interest of people coming behind you to dispel that myth by having a purpose to be in that country and dating with some modicum of purpose other than I'm trying to be with as many girls as I can. And that's part of that culture we come from that we need to decontaminate from, because, well, if you are going after, women that are marriage material for businessmen, and you keep going after those particular types of young ladies and they get to a point where they're like, why are you asking me out? I'm trying to find a man to get married to. That won't go as well as you might think. But that aside, we have to understand we come from a culture that's very, I hate to say toxic, but it is, because we're dealing with ailments that are centuries old and they have never been addressed properly and they haven't been fixed. And so just leaving the culture is not going to make us better. What makes us better addressing the ills and the maladaptive behaviors that we've learned as normal and fixing them, addressing them. Do that work, gentlemen, and your opportunity to go overseas will be that much better. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you guys next video. Take care, guys.